So I would like to introduce our practitioner today and welcome Heather Shoren Iarusso, who first moved to Tassajara in June 2008, thinking she'd stay for 6 months. Her spiritual sabbatical morphed into a way of life, residing amid the peace and beauty of the monastic valley for 7 years aggregate. Heather was ordained as a Zen priest in October 2015 by Thea Strozer, who served as the guiding teacher for Brooklyn Zen Center for many years, where Heather worked for 2 years. Heather has served in various practice roles at Tassajara, including the Ino Tenzo, which is a head cook, Shika, guest manager, and the Shuso, head student, with senior Dharma teacher Paul Haller. She's completed 12 90-day practice periods at Tassajara and has also participated in meditation intensives with many teachers, including Pema Chodron. So I'm going to pass it over to Heather, who will explain how she is going to structure today's meditation.
Thank you, Allison, for your introduction and for this opportunity to offer the Dharma through our meditation instruction this morning. And welcome to everyone who's joining us. Since I'm not sure where everyone's joining us from, I will say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. And I would like to just say a couple of comments. One is that I appreciated Allison's comments about the increasing violence against our Asian American and Pacific Islander brothers and sisters, and also the land acknowledgement. The Tassajara Zen Monastery, which is where I spent 7 years, is on unceded Esalen land. So I just wanted to mention that as well. And I will structure the morning this way. So I will give a 10 or 12 minute meditation instruction, and then we will have a 10-minute meditation, and then we will have questions and response session. Allison will be viewing the questions in the chat, and she will be posing the questions to me, and I'll be responding. And then we'll have another short meditation, and then another question and response. Because this is a webinar, I'm not able to see everyone's faces, so I apologize that I won't be able to respond to people's physical cues of their face. So I hope that you still feel connected to what I'm saying and to this practice this morning. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time out to actually do this, because I know it's not easy in the middle of our busy lives to actually set aside an hour, even though we don't have to leave our houses these days to participate. I still know how difficult it is to set aside silent time, still time in the middle of all the activities of the mind, as well as activities of the body. So I appreciate your dedication to trying to do one thing with me this morning, which is to begin to learn how to focus our attention inward on the body and the mind, to learn how to get in touch with our own innate wisdom. And I think getting in touch with this innate wisdom can help with psycho-emotional healing, and healing fissures in ourselves, and that will radiate out to help heal fissures in our very divided country, as well as our divided universal global village. So with that preamble, I will just begin to give you some instructions on how to sit still and pay attention. I don't know where everyone is actually physically located right now, not only geographically, but within your house or your apartment. So I'll just talk a little bit about posture, which is one of the 3 aspects of meditation to pay attention to. So there's the posture, there's our breathing, and then there's the mind. And I will talk about each one of these as I go along. So the posture is important because in a traditional postural posture, which I'm sure many of you probably have seen, is like a cross-legged posture, like a yogic posture, where the bottom half of your body is stabilized on a meditation cushion so that you can sit erect. Your upper half of the body would be erect, and you'd have more access to your diaphragm, right, for breathing. Most of us are sitting, many of us are sitting these days behind our computers even more, and usually sitting on a chair like I am now. So let's just talk a little bit about the sitting posture if you're sitting on a cushion, which is you want to make sure your knees are supported. So if you're sitting cross-legged, you want to make sure that your knees have cushions. If this is my knee, my elbows or my knees, you want to make sure that they're touching a cushion, that they're not up in the air. Otherwise, you can stress out your knees and cause some damage. So if you're sitting in a traditional posture of cross-legged, then make sure your knees are supported. You want to make sure that you have a natural curve in your lower back. So you don't want to overarch your back, and you don't want to slump over. This is for whether you're sitting on a cushion or whether you're sitting in a chair or sitting on your couch. You just want to make sure that you have a natural curve in your back. And you want to make sure as well that your hands are either comfortably resting on the middle part of your thigh so that you are not being pulled forward by your hands. Okay, so if you are sitting on the floor or meditation cushion cross-legged, just you can rest your hands in the middle of your thighs, and you can also roll your shoulders up to your ears, and then just let your shoulders drop. Right, we're trying to release areas of tension in our body. Sometimes we don't even know that our bodies are feeling tense until we actually stop. Right, so you can roll your shoulders up to your ears and let your shoulders drop. So you want your ears to be you want your shoulders to be on the same plane as your ears in whatever sitting position you're in. And you can also, you could hold if you like. Well, I was going to say something about the cosmic mudra, but I think I'll just suggest that you just keep your hands in the middle of your thighs for right now. We want our chest to be open, right? We want our chest heart to be open. And we want to keep our chin slightly tucked in this tradition, right? So there's a slight tuck to the chin. And then in this tradition, we sit facing a wall. And right now, many of you maybe are facing me on the computer. So that could be your wall. And we usually keep our eyes slightly downcast, like a 45-degree angle down your nose. And what this does is it helps to decrease the stimuli, the visual stimuli, right? And sitting in some place where that has like diffuse light is also helpful for decreasing visual stimuli. And it also helps to settle the central nervous system by keeping our eyes in a diffuse gaze down the bridge of our nose. So this isn't a gaze where your eyes are half open. So we don't, in this tradition, close our eyes. Keeping our eyes half open with this downward gaze helps us to stay awake while we're sitting in meditation, and also helps prevent getting lost in the fantasy world of our mind. And it's also, our eyes open is the way that we move through the world. So this is a way for us to practice paying attention to the present moment while we're on the cushion with our eyes open, again, a 45-degree angle, downcast. But this way, it's sort of like, in a way, moving through the world as well, right? We don't usually walk through the world with our eyes closed. So this helps us in this tradition to maintain alertness, to not get lost in the mental proliferations that arise while we're sitting, standing, lying down, or walking. And also because it's the way that we move through the world. You can, of course, close your eyes if you'd like. I think it's just a little harder when we begin to maintain alertness and focus when our eyes are closed. You're welcome to either close your mouth or keep your mouth slightly open. And we usually practice with breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. But you also can inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. One thing about meditation is if you're a person who tends to get caught up in I have to do it the right way, well, this is a perfect opportunity to drop that. And then it's really about practicing awareness, paying attention to actually how we feel while we're sitting still, what's going on for us in our body, what's arising in the mind. So this is an all-inclusive practice. We're not trying to stop the mind from thinking, and we're not trying to stop aches and pains from arising. We're not trying to stop emotions from arising. Everything while we're sitting is all included, right? This is an extreme, if you will, extremely focused practice of sitting still and paying attention. Okay. So the posture is very important because it helps us to be upright and also helps us to relax if we're sitting properly. So if you're sitting on a couch or on a chair, you want to, again, make sure you have the natural curves in your spine. You want to make sure your shoulders are in a line, same plane with your ears. Your chin is slightly tucked, your hands on the middle of your thighs, and your legs should be forming a 90-degree angle, and your feet should be on the floor. If your feet don't reach the floor, I would suggest moving forward on the chair or the couch, sitting sort of on your sit bones, if you will, and so that your feet touch the floor. If that doesn't work, you should put a little cushion underneath your feet, okay? So most importantly, you want to be in a relaxed, upright position. That's the most important. If you're feeling any kind of aches or soreness, you're welcome to, of course, move. This isn't a stoic venture where you have to stay like a statue for the whole meditation period. It's all about paying attention. So for me, this first aspect of the body, I like to think of this Tibetan adage, body like a mountain, breath like the wind, mind like the sky. So the ability to stay upright and stable like a mountain in the middle of whatever's arising physically and mentally for us, I think that's a really beautiful image, right? So the posture as a foundation for meditation practice. And with regard to the breath, when we begin this short meditation, the breath serves as a wonderful anchor for the mind, right? So the body is always in the present moment. The mind is a time traveler. So we're practicing anchoring the mind through the breath into the present moment, right? So to use the word yoga means to yoke, right? We're yoking body, mind with the breath. Now the breath is an anchor of meditation. And all that means is one way for us to notice when the mind is wandering, like a butterfly from flower to flower, or like a puppy just floating around in the backyard, is to have an anchor of meditation. So the breathing, which is also, of course, I know this is obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway, our breathing can only also happen in the present moment. So body is always in the present moment, breath, right? We can't breathe future breaths, and we can't take back past breaths. So the breath and the body become synced up, and this helps the mind be anchored to the present moment, right? So with the breath, what we'll want to do in this 10-minute meditation, we will begin with using the breath as our meditation anchor. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the exhale. So we will count silently the exhale, and we'll start at 1, then go up to 10. And then if you miraculously make to 10 without having a thought, you'll start from 10 and go back down to 0. And what this does is not only does the counting provide something to occupy our intellect, if you will, it also, again, provides us a container because then we'll know if the mind wanders off because we might get stuck on the number 3, or we might exhale the third exhale. And then next thing you know, we're on exhale number 7 and we have no idea where exhales 4, 5, and 6 went. So that anchor of meditation provides a container so that we can start to notice what the mind is doing. And so sitting still also helps us notice what the mind is doing. Because some people would say, I can't meditate because when I sit down, my mind races. Well, I would suggest that our minds are almost always racing, and it's not until we sit down that we actually notice that the mind is racing, because now the body is no longer being active, right? So with this meditation, which I'll start with the sound of a bell, and I'll end with the sound of a bell, we'll just focus on our exhales. When you notice the mind wandering, that's a victory, because the only way for you to notice that the mind is wandering is actually to be paying attention, which is the main goal of sitting meditation right now, is exercising our mental faculty of attention. Okay, so we're just going to simply sit. We're going to count our exhales up to 10 and then 10 down to 0. When we notice the mind is wandering, we'll start again at 1 and try to get up to 10. If thoughts arise, just notice the thought, come back to the breath. If you have an ache in your knee, notice the ache, come back to the breath. Right? So that's basically the paying attention muscle, mindfulness muscle that we're going to be using this morning. So I will virtually strike a bell here using this meditation bell, and we will begin a 10-minute meditation focusing on the exhale. And let me just say, you can't do this wrong. Just relax into whatever arises and just pay attention and enjoy the stillness. And I will pop in and out. You'll hear my voice. I will give you some reminders for focusing on the present moment. So. So when thoughts arise, just bring the mind back to the breath. Just notice the breathing sensations on the inhale, how the abdomen fills with air. There's a pause on top of the inhale before the exhale. Just notice the abdomen releasing the air. You can imagine, if you like, that your abdomen, diaphragm area is like the bottom of a vase, a flower vase. It fills up with air on the inhale and deflates on the exhale. The stem of the vase coming up through the navel, the solar plexus, the sternum in the middle of the rib cage, up through the throat, and out through either the nose or the mouth. It's like vase breathing. If that image helps you stay focused on the breath, then use it. If not, just go back to counting your exhales. Try your best to just notice breathing sensations. You're just noticing the breath, not trying to manipulate it, just getting in touch with it. Breath like the wind. We're not trying to harness the breath, not trying to extend or shorten the exhale or the inhale. It's all about just noticing, just paying attention to wherever you feel the breath in the body. Is it deep, the bottom of the vase. Does it seem like it's originating from the solar plexus? Maybe if you're feeling tension or anxiety, perhaps you feel the breathing sensations higher up in your chest or your throat, maybe even in your jaw. In a moment, I will strike the bell. And just do your best to pay attention to the moment before the bell strikes, which you don't know when the bell will strike. When the bells sound, and then just draw the mind's attention to the sound of the bell and see if you can notice when the bell sound actually fades. Usually in this Soto Zen tradition, we end our meditation with a small bow. And this is to help, again, provide a container for the mind. Right? The bell sounds, we focus on it, and we just remind ourselves that meditation has ended. And then we will notice that if that's a ritual that we normally do when we forget to do a small bow at the end. Again, that's a container for our mind to notice, oh, I forgot to bow at the end. Right? So this is, again, about strengthening our ability to pay attention in the moment, and the anchors of the breath, the bowing before meditation begins, the bow after meditation begins. They're in some ways like a ritual, and that ritual helps us to prepare the body and mind for the beginning of meditation, and then to end the meditation and remind ourselves to bow at the end as a way to continue to maintain attention. So thank you for spending those 10 minutes or so with all of our virtual brothers and sisters. And if Allison has any questions that have been in the chat room, we can start with those questions.
Heather, there are no questions right now.
Okay.
If anyone has a question, please write your question in the chat, and Heather will answer it. Otherwise, yeah, we can just keep moving.
Okay. I also, it looks like no one put anything in there about their location either. So.
Oh, wait, here we've got one question. Please review the position of the eyes.
Okay. Okay, so the position of the eyes. Like I said earlier, in this tradition, we would normally sit facing the wall. And there are some traditions that sit facing out. Again, sitting facing the wall is one way to decrease visual stimuli, as well as sitting in a diffuse light, not too dark of a light so that you don't fall asleep. So the eye position is like if you're just looking down the bridge of your nose, and if you have glasses, sometimes it's helpful to take them off. So it's just a 45-degree angle down the bridge of your nose. And your eyes are half open or half closed, depending on how you want to see that. And this is a diffuse gaze. It's not a gaze that's trying to grasp onto anything. You're not trying to focus the eyes on anything. It's just a way to help take the backward step, as we say. So your external focus is not outward, looking around at everything, right? Trying to figure things out. We're trying to calm the central nervous system, bring our attention internally, right? So the attention of our sense organs, if you will, the eyes and the ears and nose, it's all helping us to learn more about ourselves and what's arising in the moment. So the eye gaze, 45-degree angle down the bridge of your nose. Your eyes are slightly open or slightly closed, and they're not trying to focus on anything. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, Heather, we have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Where and how do you place your hands?
Okay, so the hands, traditionally in this Soto Zen tradition, we would place them like this. It's called a cosmic mudra. You probably could see this online somewhere, but I'll stand up so you can see it better. So like you have your right hand, and then you put your left hand on top of your right hand, and the middle joint or the middle joint of your middle finger are touching each other. And then, so it's like forming a circle. It's called the cosmic mudra. So if you looked it up online, you could see it. And then your thumb tips are slightly touching as if there was a piece of paper in there. And this is an energetic mudra. Mudra means hand gesture. It's from Hindu tradition. The word mudra usually is associated with the Hindu tradition or the yogic tradition. And with this mudra, if you're sitting cross-legged, if you were able to sit in full lotus, which maybe some of you are, your right hand would be resting on your heels, if you will, And if you're not able to sit in full lotus, which is many of us Westerners, then you want to have your hands, they normally would rest where your thumb tips would be close to your navel. If you're able to do that without causing undue shoulder or back pain. And you want to pretend like there is a hard-boiled egg under each of your arms and your armpits. So it's a very energetic pose. It's almost like you have a circle of your arms and a circle of the cosmic mudra for energy. And you want to just make sure that you're not putting too much stress on your shoulders and your neck. So that's one way to hold your hands, is in this cosmic mudra. The other way would be just to, with your palms down in the middle of your thighs. So that's whether you're sitting cross-legged on a cushion or sitting cross-legged on your couch, or if you're sitting like I am on a chair, you could also put your hands in the middle of your thighs. You just don't want to fold forward. Right? You just want to make sure your chest is staying open, your heart is staying open, and that your shoulders are on the plane with your ears, and they're not creeping up as well towards your ears. So those are two of the main positions for your hands. If you're more yogically inclined, sometimes they put their hands with palms facing up and their fingertips touching in some mudra. That's not how we do it in this tradition. And of course, you're welcome to explore whatever posture helps you maintain physical uprightness as well as psychological alertness. So.
Okay, we have several questions in the chat, so let me just read them.
Sure.
Quickly. I feel I'm not breathing deeply enough, yet we are not supposed to control our breathing. What about breathing more deeply? Will it just happen?
So the other key word for practicing meditation, not only is it paying attention, but it's also investigating or inquiring. So the main thing is to become intimate with however your body is breathing. If there feels like a constriction where you feel like, oh, the breath just seems to be hanging out down in the solar plexus and it's not, and you're feeling some tension there, or you're feeling like it's not, I say going lower enough, but this isn't about measuring anything. It's just about being intimate. So now you're noticing that your breath feels like it's stopping in your solar plexus or somewhere around there. Well, then you can, if you like. I mean, everything is about paying attention and doing things mindfully. So if you mindfully and gently would like to practice with, oh, how is it that, what happens if my breath tiptoes lower in my body? What happens? Sometimes there can be a rush of vibrational energy from your diaphragm or from your root chakra, and that can be kind of scary. So really be kind and gentle and curious, right? Staying out of judgment, staying in curiosity, and really exploring and becoming intimate with your particular breath sensations in that moment. Because just like everything in the world, the breath changes each moment. And the more intimate we become with breathing sensations in the moment for ourselves, the more we're paying attention to what's happening. And that's really what it's about. So notice how you, if you will, talk back to yourself. Are you frustrated that your breath's not deeper? Well, pay attention to the frustration. Maybe you can drop the frustration and then just keep noticing the breathing sensation. It changes all the time, right? So not only is the object of our meditation changing, in this case, our breathing, the mind and I say this, but who knows where the mind is located? The mind is constantly changing. So the object of the mind is changing, and the mind that's perceiving is also changing. I think it's very helpful to remember that. Each moment, there's a new Heather. Each moment, there's a new Allison. Each moment, everything is new if we're really paying attention. So just continue to sit with your breath, continue to become intimate with it, and then maybe by paying attention to it, slowly it might deepen and help you explore those areas, reveal those areas to you where it may feel kind of clenched or shallow.
Okay, lots of questions about the breath. So please
Okay.
demonstrate the counting of exhale breath again.
Okay.
Yes.
So what you would do is just be whatever the inhale happens to be, in through the nose, and then you can just in your mind silently say 1 as the breath exhales. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a little artificial because I'm doing it to demonstrate something. It would be a different perhaps rhythm when you're doing it for yourself. And of course you can exhale through your nose as well. So whatever you feel naturally arises for you. So it's just wherever that number happens. Sometimes people naturally say the number before the exhale begins. Sometimes it shows up in the middle of the exhale. Sometimes it's at the end of the exhale. So again, I think that's just individual. I don't want to offer too many rules because some of us love rules and then we measure ourselves if we don't match the rules or match the guidelines. So again, this is about a gentle exploration of breathing sensations in your body, mind in this particular moment. So just again, notice what maybe naturally arises for you when you count your exhales. And then if you want to make a mindful adjustment, you can practice with adjusting it so that you either count at the beginning of the exhale or in the middle of the exhale or at the end of the exhale.
Okay, Heather, I'm going to read 2 more questions and then we can do the next meditation and come back to the rest of the questions. There are lots of questions, but someone is asking if you could repeat the lovely connection between the breath, the posture, and the mind.
The which connection?
The connection between the breath, the posture, and the mind.
Okay. So the Tibetan phrase that I said is body like mountain, breath like the wind, and mind like the sky. So the body upright like a mountain, stable like on a mountain. I'll say alert. That may be a little anthropomorphizing. But mountains, usually we don't see them react to anything. So that's this posture of upright stability, not being buffeted by what's going on in the moment, not being stoic, not being shut down to it, but just allowing it to flow without reaction or noticing the reaction. The breath like the wind, again, not manipulating the breath, just as a mountain would sit there with whether there was no wind or there was a strong gust. It's just allowing the breath to move, right? Allowing the breath to be like the wind. And then the mind like the sky refers to the mind being boundless like the spaciousness of the sky. And one image I like to use is imagine if the sky were to grasp onto every object that went through it, planes, birds, pollution, lightning, storm clouds, puffy clouds, tornadoes. Imagine if it grasped onto all those phenomena, you would never be able to see the sky. And that's sometimes what happens to the mind. The mind is spacious and boundless like the sky, and it can get really, really cluttered. So part of meditation, practicing with the mind, is noticing the clutter in that moment, not getting involved in the clutter, just letting it fall away, right? So you're not grasping the clutter and making more clutter, and you're not pushing the clutter away. You're not sweeping it underneath the carpet, if you will. So I hope that's helpful.
That's great. So Heather, let's go ahead and start the next meditation, and then if there is time, we can return to some more questions.
Okay. And how about we just sit for like maybe another 5 minutes, and this time we'll focus on the mind. And because I may never see, I'm not seeing you now, but I may never see you again. And I think it's helpful to have some understanding of mind consciousness and thoughts. So I will strike the bell again, and then let's focus on the mind. We can notice, let's do this technique. When a thought arises, if it's about the future, say the word future. If it's about the past, say the word past. If it's about the present, say the word present. Just touch it and go. Try not to engage the content of the thought, okay? So just label what the thought, if it's future, past, or present. Okay, here we go. So when thoughts arise, label them future, past, or present. Just quickly note that, and then just go back to the breath. When more thoughts arise, do the same thing, back to the breath. Do your best not to become fascinated with thinking mind. In a moment, I'll strike the bell. And again, just allow the mind's attention to focus on the sound of the bell. Okay, I think we have a few minutes for some questions, depending on how quickly I respond.
Yes. So someone writes, I'm familiar with inhaling for 4 counts, holding your breath for 4 counts, exhaling for 4 counts, and holding your breath for 4 counts. Why do you do the 10 counts to inhale and 10 counts to exhale?
Okay, so what it sounds like you're describing to me is some type of pranayama practice, yogic practice of breathing. So I'm sorry if my description was misleading. It's not inhaling for 10 counts. It's counting each individual exhale. So first exhale is 1, the second exhale would be 2, then 3. So it's not breathing in for 10 seconds, if you will, holding it for 10 seconds, and then exhaling for 10 seconds, and then holding it for 10 seconds. It's not a pranayama, or at least my understanding of pranayama. It's just counting the exhalations to 10. The 10 is just, again, another container for the mind rather than trying to count to 200, right? We're trying to give ourselves baby steps, if you will, for meditation, and a container that seems helpful and not intimidating. So I hope that's clearer.
Yes, so we got a thank you in the chat.
Hey, yes, I see
Okay.
that.
So, oh, yes. Let's see. Sorry, I just lost my thought. Can you provide one idea or suggestion for a complete newcomer to meditation? Or if you can provide one idea, suggestion, or recommendation for a complete newcomer to meditation, what would that be? And I'm going to pair that with the other question about being new to meditation. Is it better to practice in the morning or the evening?
I say just decide for yourself what's optimal around setting up a practice container. Or to use some corporate speak, time blocking, right? How do we time block the most important things? So if getting up in the morning, you have 10, 12, 15 minutes where you can find time to yourself to meditate for the 10, 12, or 15 minutes, I say do it. I think continuity, so doing 5 or 10 minutes a day is more optimal than doing 40 minutes like every other day. Because especially when we're starting, 40 minutes seems like a lot, whereas 5 or 10 or 12 minutes doesn't seem so long. Some people like meditating in the morning and in the evening. Some people find it helpful for them to meditate, like they sit up in bed and they'll meditate for 10 or 15 minutes before they fall asleep. So that might be something you want to explore. I say just explore, but don't explore too much where you never end up doing anything, because you're, in the United States, we have this smorgasbord of spirituality where we can pick and choose and never really commit. So I would suggest setting up a routine, committing to it for a period of time and seeing how it works for you. And then as far as like Zen Center, San Francisco Zen Center, and many other organizations offer daily meditation. You can look on our website to find out about meditation that we offer in the evenings, the evenings and the mornings, Tuesday through Friday, and then Saturday mornings. We also have Dharma talks on Wednesday and Saturday. And again, there's so many places now online that have access, where you can find access to Dharma talks and to meditation. So I would just suggest making a routine. And I would just say for now, just following the breath, counting the exhales, if you can, counting the exhales with beginner's mind, right? We all should practice with beginner's mind.
Okay, maybe we have time for a couple more questions.
Sure.
I've done some guided meditations with YouTube, and they usually have music or nature sounds in the background. Does Zen meditation ever use noise other than the bell?
So from sitting in the Buddha hall or sitting in the meditation hall in Hayes Valley, my noise is the traffic, the horns, the people talking in the morning, and the birds, if we can hear them. And then in the monastery, it's the birds, it's the creek, it's the sound of the wind through the trees, it's the person's stomach gurgling next to me. So you're welcome to use a noise filter or natural sounds if that's whatever's conducive to your sitting still and paying attention to whatever arises in the body and the mind. I say do it. If you find the music distracting, I would say then don't use the music. You can use sounds, like you can notice sounds while you're meditating. It's also a very strong practice because sounds arise, they persist, and then they fade away, like the bell. And that helps us to experience a mental and physical experience of impermanence, which I think is a very important teaching of the Buddha.
And this next question relates to that. How do you quiet the mind? I find my mind wanders a great deal.
Well, you're not alone. So let's just say that. The wandering mind is what some people will say, call it the monkey mind. It's going from branch to branch to branch. Just like anything, practice. So sitting down to study the mind, to watch the mind while the body is still, I think is the most transformative, powerful way to begin to relate to arising thoughts and arising emotions in a more compassionate, awake space. And I would just say, don't take the mind so personally. Your mind just wanders. And that's why we have the container of the meditation cushion, the routine schedule, and the practice of counting the breath, all to help us notice when the mind is wandering and then come back to our breathing, come back to the body, come back to the present moment. So don't despair if your mind is wandering. It just wanders, and bring it back over and over again. Bring it back.
Okay, last question. Does it help to stretch before meditation, or is that yogic?
Well, I think, yeah, so initially, yoga was developed to prepare yogis for long periods of meditation. So these asanas that we practice, usually depending on the yoga studio, sometimes we practice them independent of meditation, but the purpose of them initially was, how do I get the body, keep the body in shape so I can stay in some very one-pointed, concentrated mental states for hours upon hours, and for some yogis, days upon days. So I say if the stretching helps you to sit still and helps to keep your body limber so that you're able to stay in an upright, relaxed posture, I say then practice to do the stretching, do the yogic stretching beforehand and even afterward.
Okay, that's great. Well, Heather, thank you so much for leading us today. This was really restful, and I feel ready to tackle the weekend. And thank you all for joining us from places as far away as France and Ottawa, Canada. We really appreciate this. Check out the Asian Art Museum website. We have the next meditation session is May 10th, I believe. It's the second Saturday in May, so it might be May 8th. But please join us for that or any of our other programs. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, everyone. Have a mindful day.